For this reproductive video, I'm going to cover the ovary and maybe a couple muscles on the sexual response muscles. So let's just cover this ovary real quick. Remember, the ovary had an ovarian ligament coming down, holding it in place. And then the ovary also had a cortex and medulla. And of course, in the ovarian ligament, we have blood vessels also to nourish the ovary. And we have the connective tissue holding it in place. The cortex would be the outer core of the ovary with these developing follicles and oocytes. And the medulla would be the middle part of the ovary with the blood vessels. So remember, in the ovary, we have oocytes at different stages. And we have the follicle cells around the oocytes at different stages. So first, the oocytes just start pretty much as oocytes with no follicle. You can see them here. They have maybe one layer of cells around them. So we would call these stem cells primordial follicles with oocytes in the middle. So the oocyte nucleus, dark gray, cytoplasm, light gray, and the yellow would be the primordial follicle cells. They're usually bunched together out near the cortex edge. Then we're going to get a more highly developed follicle group here. You can see the follicle cells pretty nicely. They look like simple cuboidal. We can see their nucleuses and cytoplasm, and they're in a circle, and they're surrounding the oocyte in the middle. So this would be the primary follicle stage. Then when we get two layers of follicle cells around the oocyte, it's called the secondary follicle. And here you can see the oocyte bigger, and it still has a nucleus. So we went from primordial follicle stage to primary follicle stage to secondary follicle stage. Now, the follicles are going to really get developed, and it's going to get this big antrum in the middle, and that's a fluid-filled space. Now, I wish they had showed this a little bit more like the microscope slide, but basically, when you have a secondary follicle that gets big like this and gets a big opening in it, and we still have an oocyte and the follicle cells around it, this would actually be inside the antrum. This is starting to ovulate. So picture this being in here, about right here, and that would be what we call a Graafian follicle or mature follicle. This is the oocyte. This is the corona radiata part of the follicle. And again, that would be in here, and we'd have a big antrum full of fluid. And this is follicle cells around here too. But what happens during ovulation is the fluid kind of bursts, and this corona radiata kind of slingshots this oocyte out into the fallopian tubes, and the fimbriae of the fallopian tubes pull it in. So this is an ovulating Graafian or mature follicle. Corona radiata, oocyte, the whole thing, Graafian or mature follicle. Now, once it's ovulated, the follicle cells here will reunite. Now, there's no oocyte. It's gone. It's ovulated. But these follicle cells are still going to perform a purpose if this oocyte gets fertilized. So this oocyte is traveling down the fallopian tubes. This corpus luteum, we're going to call this now, after it's ovulated. The corpus luteum will make hormones and nutrition to keep the uterus ready, just in case that oocyte gets fertilized. If it doesn't get fertilized, this corpus luteum won't last very long, maybe a week, and then it'll shrivel down into what we call the corpus albicans and become a scar, inactive. Here's another corpus albicans. You wondering what this is? Well, this is right after ovulation, between this And this, that's going to become the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum will stay active if the egg is fertilized until the placenta takes over, which could be 8 weeks. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you was some of these. Make sure you look at the extra reproductive video I put in there on sexual response. I just wanted to show you these because they do show up on these two models. I talked about the two sexual response muscles. And these, of course, are looking upside down. So to get your perspective, you know, we have the penis with the scrotum here, and that's the anus. And remember I said there's two muscles here. The ischiocavernosus and the bulbospongiosus. Now the ischiocavernosus is going to go from the ischium of the hip, way up here, to the corpora cavernosa of the penis. Now the corpora cavernosa was the dorsal part, and that's the part that filled up with blood for the erection. So the ischiocavernosus muscle, ischium of the hip, the dorsal of the penis, is going to maintain the erection. And then that other one, the bulbospongiosus, is actually going to wrap around the whole base of the penis. And when that contracts, you get the ejaculation. So it's a bulb around the spongiosus part, actually around the whole base of the penis, that will squeeze it during the sexual response and cause ejaculation. So bulbospongiosus, you can also see it here. Then we have two ischiocavernosus. I don't mention these, but this is actually a what we call the transverse perineal muscle. Perineum is the area between the anus and the, let's say, the urethra. Anywhere in here is the perineum. This is a external anal sphincter, and there's also a hair muscle and a levator ani. And then we're going to get into the glutes there. Now, the female is going to have these same two muscles during the sexual response. Here, we can see the ischiocavernosus here. Now, let's get a perspective here first. Because remember, I do have it upside down. So the clitoris is going to be here, vagina, and rectum there. So the ischiocavernosus is still going to lead up to the base of the clitoris to maintain the erection. That's going to be this one. Here. Let's see it here. The bulbospongiosus for the muscle contraction during the orgasmic phase, even though there's not an ejaculation, it's still going to squeeze some fluid out of this vestibule area, because there's the vestibular glands. So this bulbospongiosus is going to surround the opening here of the vagina and the urethra, and it's going to be surrounding these vestibular glands. You got our anal sphincter, levator ani, and some of the glutes there. So to review, ischiocavernosus, ischium to the clitoris, bulbospongiosus surrounding the whole vestibule area. Male, ischiocavernosus, hip, base of penis, maintain the erection. Bulbospongiosus surrounding the whole base of the penis to cause the ejaculation. I want to show you one more thing here. This model, if you remember the urinary here, well, is this a male model or female? Look closely. Remember, we have our bladder here. Kidneys, ureters, bladder from the back. Well, I hope you said, even though you don't see a penis there, it is a male, they don't have the penis on there. We know it's a male because we see the seminal vesicle glands and the prostate. The prostate is key. If you see prostate gland under the bladder. Even if the penis has been removed, of course, it's a male.